Accidentally rolled with a nemesis all night. He said he was pregnant. The baby is mine. I laughed. You're an alpha. It's not your turn to get pregnant. I'm not sure what I'm talking about. What was that noise I just made? 01. City Hospital, Department of Reproduction. The head doctor rolled his eyes at me through the lens. Who did you say was pregnant? Him. Connor had the nerve to point at me? I explained. He believed me. It was agreed that I'd come with him for the test. What's going on? Are you playing me? I glared at him, my fists clenched. Cough. The head doctor held up his glasses and handed over a sheet. Take this and go for a checkup. I took a look at the name on the list and instantly quit. He's pregnant too. You should give him one too. Dr. Glasses sucked a mouthful of tea, yucked a piece of tea, snap, a single slap in my hand. If he is pregnant, I'll get up and you sit here. And sucked a mouthful of hot tea. Physiological hygiene class did not tell you to do measures? Thus, just rush that 10 seconds. Now it's good that your stomach is bulging and you know you're in a hurry. Why are you only talking about me? Connor had the nerve to cover his face and laugh. I slapped the checklist on his chest. If you want to go, you go yourself. Connor bent down to pick up the list and looked at Dr. Glasses. Uncle, you do not say a few words. I'm not easy to coax people to come. Do not turn back to you and give me to say run away. I gritted my teeth, fist against the desktop. Connor, you still want to have no face? Ahem. I turned my head and Dr. Glasses smiled at me, propping up the armrests of his chair and sliding back. This table has been with me for over 10 years, so go easy on it. It's just a human being. My clenched fist was suddenly wrapped. Connor's men were fighting with me, but on the surface, they were all very relaxed. Uncle, I think you are quite busy. I'll take him for a checkup first, and have someone send you 2 more boxes of tea tomorrow. Okay, hurry up. Dr. Glasses looked at me again and blocked his mouth. Your subject looks like he really wants to replace me? I didn't. Connor grabs the list and brings it outward with one hand on my shoulder, lowering his head to stay close. If I remember correctly, I went in that night. It's only been a month, so it's not too late if you don't want it. Of course you can have the baby if you want. I'll raise it. I slapped him away. Raise your big head. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, so I went up and kicked him again. It's all your fault. To this day, he doesn't want to think back to that night. He accidentally drank fake alcohol himself, but grabbed the accidental heat of me to go to a room to let off steam. He said he could control it. Said he would not go in. It's all a lie. Coming out of the last checkup, wherever I go, Connor's eyes follow. An impish grin curled at the corner of his mouth. I frowned irritably. What are you smiling at? He sits down next to me and whispers, You were really hot that night. I turn my head sideways, smile, and reach up to point a finger at the upturned corner of his mouth. Connor. What's wrong? Bitchiness is a disease. It's a disease that needs to be cured. When will the doctor treat it? I was trying to psychiatrically treat him when the work phone rang. So I settled for physical therapy, reached down and pinched his lips. Left one hand to answer the phone. The effect was remarkable. Connor sat across from me. Phone call after phone call. Finished processing 3 work messages. Just got a meeting reminder from my assistant. Heard the person across the table say, Love work that much? I gave him a blank look, mentally calculating the time. I heard him say, An omega who is too strong for her own good will not get any pity from her alpha. I sneered, None of your business. I put away my tablet and prepared to leave, a shadow casting itself in front of me. The test results aren't in yet. Where are you going? Back to the office for a meeting. Just as he took a step, his arm was caught in a vice-like grip. Is that all you have time for? Is work more important than your health? A month ago, when you took the risk of going into heat to accompany a client, you almost lost yourself in the end. Isn't that enough of a lesson for you to learn from your mistakes? With his brows furrowed and his chest heaving, he seemed to be quite angry. Not sure what he was angry about. And with what stance. Connor, You're hurting me. The force on his arm loosened. It was replaced by a silky green sandalwood scent. The temporary marker was still in effect. The straightened spine gradually lost its strength. I closed my eyes and forced myself to calm down, lifting my eyes to meet his cold gaze. Not everyone is like Connor, born with wealth that ordinary people can't earn in several lifetimes. I, Oliver, am a lowly man who has never had to rely on himself and never needed anyone's pity. I'll get the test results, and if they're there or not, it's not Connor's problem. Connor's looks are actually a bit gangly. Plus, S-Class Alpha is born with a strong aura. He can be quite intimidating when he is a little bit calm. But in my eyes, it's just like that. I hooked my lips and smiled coldly as I walked around his side and headed straight for the elevator. This person also chased me. I'm afraid of nothing. 03. Connor transferred to the high school I attended my sophomore year. As soon as he arrived, he was the center of attention. Not only because of his family, looks, and grade, but also because of his grades. I, on the other hand, was an ordinary person who hadn't been differentiated yet and would probably become a beta. In terms of family history, I only have a lousy father who is addicted to gambling and drinking and tries to sell me for money. In terms of grades, Connor kicked me from first to second in my first monthly exam after he arrived. A pretty face was never a good thing for me. All I had to show for it were my grades. So I never hid my ambition to come in first. Connor, too, was often a bit of a me or nothing kind of guy. Everyone in my class and my teachers thought Connor and I didn't get along. I thought so myself. Until I suddenly diverged. Because it came too late, the first heat, which came immediately after, nearly killed me. I was so poor I was working 3 weekend jobs. My doctor suggested I buy a strong suppressant, but I went cheap and bought the most common kind. I took 3 shots at once and still felt like I was being soaked in boiling, churning lava. In the dilapidated shack with the doors and windows closed, I curled up in the corner, too sore to move. I laughed to myself and wondered if I would be burned alive by the fever. While my consciousness was muddled, the door of the room was kicked open with a bang. Someone squatted in front of me. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Burying my head into the crook of my arm, I exhaled with difficulty. Get lost. You're going to die. Connor said calmly. Subconsciously, I wanted to dislike him back, but my nose caught a hint of Alpha's pheromone flavor. It was clean and light, gradually thickening and mellowing. Can you take it? Green sandalwood. I looked up, my gaze slowly sweeping over his eyebrows, eyes, nose, and lips. It's still very understated. Shouldn't you be happy I'm dead? He smiles wistfully and reaches up to press a hand to my shoulder, sliding it slowly to the back of my neck. Oliver. I'm going blind trying to pass you. First time in my life I've met someone as interesting as you. I didn't move, letting his fingers rub and test around my glands. So let me help you. I can't even listen to my classes without seeing you, and with the second exam coming up, you can't let my efforts go to waste. I was so dimly aware that all I could see was the opening and closing of his lips. The vision shifted down and paused for 2 seconds. A light tug at the corner of his mouth. Connor. You begged me. A chuckle in my ear as Connor wraps his arms around me and presses me into his embrace. The voice was husky. Please, Oliver. Let me mark you. 04. It's just a temporary mark. It's not like I'm missing any meat. In fact, I didn't have a choice. When it was over, I asked, how much? Connor seemed confused by the question and didn't blink for half a day. I explained, S-Class Alpha pheromones, market price. His cheeks were suddenly pinched. I'm not for sale. I plucked away his hand and continued. At market price, I shouldn't be able to afford to give it. What do you want in return? Connor's furrowed brow gradually stretched. Are you serious? I looked at him with amusement. Other than the money I can't give you, tell me the rest. In that case, Connor smiled meaningfully. I want you. What? I want to talk to you. About what? Math or physics? Don't talk about languages. I'm not good at languages. Love. I tilted my head and looked at him, then spoke after a long time. Sure, I'll think about it if you give me a pass on the second model exam. Connor whispered, "Little liar." Moving closer, he said, "If I don't try harder to run ahead of you, you won't even look at me." I closed my eyes and smiled tiredly. The respect and recognition I craved most. Surprisingly, I got it from my arch nemesis in the sky. 05. Connor does what he says he's going to do. Hasn't let me in once. Also chasing me in the dark. How fierce he fights in front of people, how crazy he chases after people. I didn't understand what he saw in me, and I didn't agree to his advances. But what a couple can do, I did with him many times. And argued more often. I spent most of my free time working odd jobs. Connor thought I was wasting my youth and questioned why I didn't take him up on it. I laughed and asked him back why I should accept his help. He asked about my family and I always avoided it. When he invited me to his home, I always made excuses. After a few times, the trust fell apart. Any more enthusiasm will be worn out. In my perception, love hardly crosses classes. Connor stands at the top of the mountain, and I'm at the bottom, carrying a ticking time bomb. I often drifted off into a trance, whether he gave me more love or pity, and sometimes had no bottom to argue with. I thought at that time, at least, wait until I climbed halfway up the mountain, or at least, wait until I dropped that time bomb. When I realized that Connor was getting cold, I understood one thing. Love is also about timing. Why would Connor wait for me? During the last argument, he said I was playing with his feelings. I wanted to retort, but couldn't find a suitable sentence. A screwed up and sensitive person like me. Any more love that fills my heart is like going into a bottomless pit. I can't even hear a sound. It's no different from playing around. I didn't promise him, I didn't even have to break up with him. And then later, is to go to college. He and I are not in a university, usually will not contact. Occasionally, 1 or 2 high school reunions, he spoke is also a gun. I drank wine, and did not idle, sentence with a response to dislike. In the presence of the crowd, more solidified my relationship with his nemesis. I felt right with myself. Connor and I were still suited to pinching each other, not hugging. After graduating from college, I gave up on graduate school and started my own business. I heard Connor went abroad. I don't have any feeling. Connor is no longer my purpose to fight for fame and fortune. Whether he's here or not, I'm going to take the cross-class path. Omega, so what? So what if I don't have anyone to depend on? It's just a cheap life, so I'll just do it. 06. A month ago, the cooperation between the company and the pharmaceutical company took 2 months of negotiation and finally came to the step of signing the contract. The day of the business banquet was just the day before my 3-month heat cycle. As usual, I was supposed to take a vacation and stay home. Caleb, the other founder of the company, was supposed to host the banquet that day. But he informed me on the spur of the moment that his wife was suddenly in labor after eating a hot pot. And this cooperation involves the company's export pharmaceutical industry, so there was no room for sloppiness. I had to go. As soon as Caleb saw that I was the one who came, he immediately asked someone to open a few new bottles of wine. There was another reason why I didn't want to come, and that was Caleb himself. The contract was delayed for 2 months before signing. In fact, it was also testing my bottom line. I've been in business for so many years, and I've encountered a lot of this kind of situation. In the first 2 years of my business, I even encountered a situation where I was directly opened up at the wine table, but I managed to cope with it. I could have gotten away with it that day. After signing the contract, I went to the restroom and threw up. When I came out to wash my face, I felt someone standing behind me. I looked up and there in the mirror was me with a watery face. And Connor with a frown on his face. Was hugging his arms and surveying me. I braced my hands on the sink and lowered my head, my breathing disorganized for a few moments. Cupped a few more handfuls of cool water and pounced on my face. Stepped around his side. Didn't say a word. Back at the booth, Caleb continued to fill me up. One glass after another, and it was as if I didn't realize I was drinking. I didn't realize I was drinking until the back of my neck burned unbearably. The pungent smell of alpha pheromones lingered in the air, and a fat hand groped my waist. I braced myself to finish my scene, explained a few things to my subordinates, and stumbled out the door. Caleb offered to see me off and got up after me. The sickening sound of laughter behind me was getting closer. About to touch the compartment door. The door suddenly opened from the outside. I lurched forward, into a warm, solid embrace. Strangely enough, I didn't want to move at once. The familiar smell of S-class alpha pheromones quickly overpowered another unpleasant odor. The scene fell silent. Connor carried me over his shoulder one-handed and headed out the door. As I got into the car, I thanked him. Verbal thanks are not accepted. I loosened my tie and lifted my eyes, giving him an amused look. Gasping slightly, I asked, "So what do you want from me?" "I've been drugged, you help me." I closed my eyes and laughed mockingly as I fastened my seatbelt. "Serves you right." Alpha's breath pressed in. There was a bite on my lip. "Are you going to help me or not?" I bit back in the same spot and pushed him away. "Drive faster." 07. It was a month later today that we met again. Early in the morning, Connor was waiting for me at the entrance of my neighborhood. He said he was pregnant and wanted me to take responsibility. I'm also not good at it. I didn't say a couple of words, but I made that kind of dead noise. So somehow he abducted me to the car. I had a checkup. And then there's now. I was sitting in the conference room of the company, upset thinking about the results of the checkup and that smelly face. I went back to my office for a 10-minute break after the meeting. Was about to go to the hospital to get the report. The cell phone rang. A number I knew by heart 10 years ago. "What's up?" "The test results are in." I didn't say anything. "My uncle said that your pregnancy is a bit short now, and that you should go for an ultrasound in a week to check the growth of the fetal heart and buds, and prescribed some supplements, which I'll send you, and that the pheromones in your body are not stable now, and that you need me." "Connor," I interrupted, "what the hell is wrong with you?" There was silence on the receiver. Long enough that I thought he had hung up and heard him ask, "Oliver, can we talk in person?" "Talk about what?" "Business? About the unformed embryo in my belly? Talk about you." "What?" "About how you've been doing all these years." I said impatiently, "It's been great." "I don't believe you." "I don't believe you." There was a chuckle on the receiver. Uncle was right, omegas in the early stages of pregnancy are usually irritable, just you wait. I grunted. "Wait for what?" "You can't stand it anymore, you want to get rid of me?" "Wait for me to calm you down at night." 08. Speaking of appeasement, Caleb's wife had just had a baby and as a responsible alpha he had to be there. So after receiving my red envelope, he turned around and had his assistant turn over all his work to me. He has been working overtime for several days in a row. I couldn't even open my eyes when I got home today. I'm already annoyed. When I saw a suitcase in front of my house, the owner of the suitcase had a bad face. I was so annoyed. I stepped around him and went straight to press the lock on the door. "Oliver. Say. Do you have to work so late to get home? Is work that important to you? Can't you take care of yourself?" Yell at me. Let go of the half-finished code and turn around. And glaring at me. "Connor. What's the point of waiting half a day just to lecture me? I didn't ask you to wait for me, so why are you giving me the stink eye? Did I ever say I wanted to keep the baby? If I can't even raise myself, why should I raise a child?" I've said it all. I felt like a balloon that had been stabbed. I lost all my strength. My back was pressed against the door, and my heart was beating violently. Only the sound of breathing echoed in the air. The toe of my shoe moved forward and the back of my warm hand brushed against my cheek. "Why are you crying? I thought you said you were doing well?" I wiped my face carelessly and turned my back. My fingers just touched the electronic door lock. My back was covered with heat, and 2 arms wrapped around my waist. "Let go. You're pushing me. If you push me away now, I promise I'll go far away and never bother you again." I take a few deep breaths. Restrained my hands from shaking. Clasped his tiger's mouth and pinched. The next instant, Connor wrenched my shoulders and hugged me from the front. Voice trembling thinly, he laughed. "I knew it, Oliver, I knew it." I sniffled, my nostrils thick. "You knew shit." It was annoying. 09. Connor said to stay. So be it. He had to share a bed with me. When he got out of the shower, I found a new 4-piece bed and threw it at him. You go sleep in the guest room, I'm not sleeping well lately. It was the truth. I've been having trouble falling asleep and waking up for about a week now. That's why I'm here. Connor turned his hand and put the 4-piece suit back in the closet. Without the comfort of alpha pheromones, an omega in the early stages of pregnancy can have a hard time, including but not limited to insomnia, anxiety, irritability, and loss of appetite. It points to me. I was full of disdain. Are you so sure that what's in my belly is your seed? Connor raised a single eyebrow at that and walked slowly towards me. A few years dash, he trailed off. You've been playing around? Going to another man with my mark? Does he satisfy you? Can he make you feel good? Can. I slapped him on the mouth. Sorry, reflex. Connor licked his lips and scanned me with slightly narrowed eyes. What the? Wrists were caught violently, yanked forward, and slammed into the half-open chest of the bodice. In the blink of an eye, he was half straddled and half carried into the bed in a grip around his waist. One of Connor's hands was still under my waist, the other gripping my shoulder. The whole man was no more than a palm's length away from me. I bent my knees against him and was immediately crushed by him lifting his leg. What are you mad about? If it's my seed or not, won't you know if you try? Without waiting for me to react, he easily flipped me over. His chest was pressed against my back. Let go. You'll feel better soon. Let go. The glands at the back of my neck were steeped in a wet heat. The tip of his tongue flicked around the small bump. I squirmed impatiently and pushed back against him. In return, the back of my neck tingled slightly. Connor was biting me. A slow release of pheromones. Almost instantly, the green sandalwood scent tickles my green bamboo scent. Suddenly, I thought of something my high school physiology class teacher had said. Matching pheromones, once they meet, are like two puffs of smoke burning in an incense burner. Rising, chasing, and entangled, gradually fused into one strand. And then diffuse in the blood, flowing through each other's body. At this moment, I feel like soaking in a pool of warm water. The pores of my entire body are open. Relaxation, but not just relaxation. There was also a continuous climb of pleasure. A large palm traveled down my backside. Connor badgered my ear with hot breath. I blush and bury my head in the pillow. I touched his arm and pinched it hard. A low chuckle passed. I was turned over again. Connor had stripped himself naked at some point and tried to reach down and strip me. Glaring at me? You're glaring at me at this moment. Connor hooked his lips and murmured, What's the difference between that and pampering? What do you want? He lifted the covers over both of us with one hand and didn't keep his other hand free. Do what makes you happy. The scents of green sandalwood and green bamboo intertwined and melded lovingly. Connor's voice was low and compelling. More. I pursed my lips. A submissive, instinctive. He took me in his arms and sat me down. I climbed onto his shoulders and had to bite my lip tightly as a tingle came from my tailbone. The intensity behind me was suddenly heavier and I couldn't help but bite him. Connor pressed me harder into his arms. His voice was hoarse as hell. I can't help it, I'm about to explode. If I bite again, I'll fucking come for real. He started it. When it was over, I lay on my back with him on my stomach. It was hard to look at me. I scrunched up my hands and looked up at him. You might as well go to the bathroom and fix it yourself. Connor gave me a sultry look and cupped my jaw. Pulled a hard can on my mouth. Rolls over and gets out of bed. Little heartless. Connor came under the covers wrapped in a cooler. I was already so sleepy I couldn't keep my eyes open. Count on him being somewhat useful. But now he's trying to shake me awake. That's a good way to get your ass kicked. Connor's face came up just as the slap was raised. Take a hit, then give me a moment. Some things have to be said while they're hot, or you'll be up in the morning flipping out again. I compromised. 10 minutes. Connor took my hand and clutched it into his palm. First thing, do you admit the baby is mine? Yes. I was kissed on the forehead. But just in case someone thinks too much, I'd like to make it clear that everything I do from today onwards is for the purpose of raising the big one, and the little one is just along for the ride. If the big one doesn't want the little one, then we'll just have to meet again sometime. Kiss me if you agree. Connor took the back of his hand and gave me a kiss on the lips. Very well. Secondly, why didn't you accept me in the first place? Why not? Because I didn't deserve it. Because I was afraid of being a drag. Because of that ridiculous pride. I pulled my hand out of the grip and looked up at the ceiling. Connor, you do have an answer in mind, don't you? The right hand was rewrapped. Let me put it another way, if I were to pursue you again, would I have a 50% chance of success? Aren't you afraid I'll play with your feelings again? You don't have to worry about that, you just need to tell me yes or no. Is more than that. Another kiss on the forehead. That's good. This last thing, I actually asked you 10 years ago. Oliver, could you rely on me a little more? 10 years ago, at the end of one of my rutting sessions, I was lying helplessly on top of him. He rubbed my back and asked me if I could rely on him a little more for other things too. I answered then with 2 words. Really, I wouldn't. No one had ever taught me that. Actually, I had just thought of that answer. But for some reason, it was kind of hard to say. I turned on my side, my back to him. Connor, 10 minutes are up. A soft, helpless laugh rang in my ears. It's okay, at least you didn't balk. Tucking me in again. Good night, Oliver. 11. My life did change a bit when Connor moved in. I was able to have a hot breakfast, and the lights were on when I got home at night. The quality of sleep is much improved. Late again this morning. Caught by Caleb, who had just returned from work. Pacing back and forth in my office with a cup of coffee. Oliver, who is never late for a typhoon or a rainstorm or a hailstorm, has been late 3 times this month. What do you say? He was in charge of the company's finances, and I smiled indifferently. The file I had just opened was snatched away. Is that what I meant, Oliver? I looked up to see him smiling again. Look at you, this face red. Body can also vaguely smell Alpha's flavor. Honestly, is there a situation? Count on it. Really? Caleb held my shoulders with both hands, a little excited. You finally thought about it, Oliver. Every time you were alone during the holidays these years, your sister-in-law and I wanted to introduce you to someone, but you were so good, you opened your mouth and just refused. He said, hugging me again and patting me on the back. It's not easy, Oliver. It's not easy to pick you, the flower of the mountain. Let's do it tonight. Let's get off work early, bring your date and come to my house for dinner. Your sister-in-law and I will be your gatekeepers. I pushed him away, a little crying and laughing. Not yet, don't worry about it. My relationship with Connor is like a half-baked dish. It's almost hot. He and I hadn't seen each other for almost 10 years after we'd fallen out. Now he's coming back to me, and I'm trying to show him my original self. But 10 years is enough time to change a lot of things. Maybe when he sees me in my truest form, he won't open his arms to me again. Or maybe, the man he is now will lose patience with me sooner than the man he was 10 years ago. It was just after 5 that afternoon when Caleb rushed me out of work. I went to his house even though I hadn't brought my date with me. Caleb and I were in the same class in college, and his wife Sienna was our senior. Caleb is not able to walk when he first meets someone, and he chases after people like a mallet, knowing that he can be brutal. I've been in the middle of it for a long time to make it work. Over time, Sienna and I became friends who could talk about anything. After graduation, Caleb and I started our own business, and Sienna helped us a lot with funding. During the first 2 years of our business, we were often busy until late at night. Sienna even learned to cook so that Caleb could come home to a hot meal. Whenever I went to their house for dinner, Sienna cooked for me. But today was different. Today's dinner was cooked by Caleb when he arrived home. To be honest, it wasn't as good as Connor's. After dinner, I went to the nursery to watch the baby for a while. Before I left, Sienna packed me another big bag of food. Caleb helped to carry it to my car. I walked slowly with Sienna behind me. He suddenly grabbed me by the shoulders and asked me with a big smile. I heard Caleb say that you are in a situation? How did you meet him? When are you going to bring it to us? As expected, There are two kinds of people who can't sleep under the same blanket. After deliberating for a while, I replied, let's wait. Okay, but let me remind you, before you get married, remember to take precautions. To be honest, when I saw you for the first time this morning, I wondered if you were pregnant. Ha ha ha. Sienna reached out and pinched my face. I'm just kidding, maybe I've been spending a lot of time with the baby lately and I'm feeling a little bit lost, don't mind me. Sienna's words were still swirling around in my head until I got in the car and said goodbye to them. I haven't thrown up since Connor moved in. I've been able to eat, sleep, go to work, and I'm even in better spirits than I was before. If Sienna hadn't mentioned it tonight, I would have forgotten I had one in my stomach. On the phone the other day, Connor offered to go for an ultrasound in a week. It's been almost a month. He didn't mention anything about going to the hospital for a checkup. Did he forget to? While waiting at a red light, a message popped up on my cell phone. I've made chestnut and chicken soup in a casserole. I'm going to have a video conference soon, so remember to drink it when you get back. Last night when I was fast asleep, I heard him ask what kind of soup he wanted to have today. I blurted out a sweet one. The red light turned green and the traffic started moving. Taking such good care. How could I forget? When I got home, the light was on in the living room. The light was also on in the den. Connor is sitting where I usually work. Black shirt, gold-rimmed glasses. Casual and lazy, leaning on the back of the chair, fell on the screen of the gaze is calm and focused. The whole person carries a kind of superior person's majesty and confidence. This is the first time I've seen Connor at work. Very handsome. In fact, he's always been handsome. I looked through the half-hidden doorway for a while. Noticing the movement of his gaze, my body reacted before my brain. I didn't know why I was hiding. 2 seconds later, the phone vibrated. I see you, Oliver-san. Go try the soup you made today. The temperature of the soup in the casserole was just right. The color was bright and the taste was sweet and refreshing. Caleb's cooking is really not as good as Connor's. I took out my cell phone. Yummy. Do you want to eat? Bring a bowl in for you. No, you eat more, I'll finish soon. I tasted a chestnut, delicate and soft, full of sweetness. When I separated from Connor, I swore I'd never touch this again. Because I'd had enough. That winter during the first semester of my senior year of high school, I came home from my odd jobs. Connor would always come to me with a paper bag of fried chestnuts. I was busy studying. He moved a stool and sat next to me. He would look at me to see if I got the question right or not, and peel the chestnuts in his hand. When he peeled a chestnut, he pushed one into my mouth. The flavor is probably the same as what I'm chewing right now. Just as I put down the spoon, I was tapped on my left shoulder. Without looking back, I swung my head to the right. Connor covered his stomach with an exaggerated expression. I gave him a sidelong glance. Covering my stomach like him too. Connor instantly crouched in front of me, panic in his eyes. What's wrong with you? Does your stomach hurt? I looked at him steadily for a few seconds and suddenly smiled. I'm fine, I thought you forgot. What? I gestured to the stool beside him, signaling him to sit. Connor. Huh. Still frowning. You actually really want me to keep the baby, don't you? I don't mention having the test, and neither does he. The longer it goes on, the more risky it is to get rid of it. The more likely it is that I'll have it. Connor's eyes are slightly downcast and he's silent. Silence is also an answer. If you want a child so badly, why don't you get married earlier? There should be plenty of people who want to marry you. Oliver, Connor finally lifted his eyes to look at me. If there is a child, you and I can't get out of this life. I propped my head up on one hand and looked into his eyes. How could anyone be so obsessive? I let out a laugh and called out to him. Connor. Aha. I can skip work tomorrow. Are you free? Yeah, what's up? Going to the hospital to see if the baby is growing. 14. On the way to the hospital, I was actually a little nervous. Because of all the drinking that night. Connor seemed more nervous. Called his uncle 3 times before 7 a.m. He put on his seatbelt before driving and almost stuck the latch into the passenger side. As for you, why don't I drive? No, that would make me look useless. Take a nap if you're sleepy. I watched him pull onto the main highway and lifted my hood to put it on. Just closing his eyes, he heard him ask, "Oliver, you said last night you'd have the baby as long as it was healthy, right? You're not allowed to go back on that, are you?" I said no backsies. It's been a month since I stepped into the city hospital again. The last time I came, I was reluctant. This time, I was in a completely different state of mind. After all the tests, when I heard Uncle Connor say, "Everything's fine," I unconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Unconsciously, I let out a sigh of relief. Dr. Uncle put down his teacup with a rare serious expression. "Is this a confirmation that you're going to have the baby?" I glanced at Connor, who was looking intently at the ultrasound sheet, and replied, "I'm sure." "There's a problem." "What?" "Smile more often." "Is it good for the fetus?" "It's good for you." "One more question. Are you guys married?" Connor looked up at his words, glanced at me, and said, "Uncle, don't worry about that, we have our own rhythm." Rhythm? Then he turned his body sideways and put up his palm to cover his mouth. "You can't handle your own omega even though you have a child. You've disgraced yourself as an alpha. A disgrace to the family. When the day comes that people go to their father and leave their children behind, you won't even have a place to cry." I coughed twice. "Uncle? Doctor, I can hear you. I can hear you." "What uncle, doctor?" "Just call your uncle." My left hand was suddenly held. Connor wrinkled his nose and asked me, "Do you know how to do that?" "Can what?" "Leave the father and the son." "Wouldn't." "Really? I'd need a marriage license for that." I realized the purpose of Connor's 3 phone calls this morning. I was just about to nod my head and say, "Yes." The phone rang. It was the assistant. I got up and walked out of the office to answer it. "What's wrong?" "I'm sorry, Oliver, I've disturbed your rest. There's a woman at the office who wants to see you and says she won't leave until she sees you today, so Caleb has arranged for her to go to the parlor." "Who?" "She said she's your mom." "My mom?" I haven't heard those 3 words in years. I just hung up. Connor came over. "Oliver, Uncle was just kidding. You don't have to feel pressure. I said I would pursue you. I will definitely pursue you until the day you willingly agree to me." "That? Today you are not rest. I booked the restaurant. After dinner I will take you to?" "In the afternoon." "Connor." "What's going on?" "I have to go back to the company." The smile on Connor's lips froze. The loss in his eyes was blinding. "Right now?" "Yes." Then I'll walk you there." I draw my hand out and say in a faint voice, "No need." 15. Shortly after I was born, my dad lost his job. Not long after, he became addicted to gambling, and in less than a year, the family lost everything to him. My mom couldn't take it anymore and divorced him. After she left, my dad started drinking again, gambling when he was sober and drinking when he lost. When he was drunk, he began to hit on me, and several times he wanted to sell me for money. 2 years ago, he got his comeuppance. I was hit by a car on the way back when I was drunk and came to me for money. At least I got my life back. Now I'm living in a nursing home, relying on me for $20,000 a month. As for my mom, the last time I heard anything about her was when my dad got drunk in high school and told me she remarried and had an alpha son. After all these years, she hasn't come to me once. Suddenly she wants to see me. What can I offer her now? Just money. It doesn't matter. The only thing I have now is money. "Oliver, your mom is waiting for you in the parlor." "Got it." The glass door opened. A plainly dressed woman looked over. Her eyes were red and swollen, so haggard I hardly recognized her. "Oliver." I stopped where I was and watched her walk towards me. It took several swallows before I could get out the "Mom." "Hey," she came to take my hand. "Mom hasn't seen you for a long time. Look at you now. You are so capable, Mom was." In the beginning, Mom is sorry for you, Oliver." Said about to fall into tears. I took her to my office. "What are you looking for me? Just say it." She looked at me with difficulty and spoke after a long time. "Oliver, besides you, Mom also has a son, who is as good as you are. But 2 months ago, he found out that he has leukemia, And all the relatives we can find in our family have done the matching, and none of them are a good match? I looked down and laughed to myself. A figure my money, a figure my life. Oliver, you are Mom's last hope, will you help Mom? I said as I looked her in the eyes. Mom, I have a baby in my belly too. A crack appeared in her mournful expression. Pregnant? When did you? How could you? I didn't say anything and watched her tears rustle down her face. After a while, she stepped closer to me. Oliver, you can have a test if you're pregnant. It's just a blood draw. It's okay? I looked out the floor-to-ceiling window in silence. Today's sunlight is extraordinarily harsh, but it doesn't make you feel the slightest bit of warmth. In the afterglow, she suddenly fell to her knees. Loudly cried, Oliver, Mom begs you. Just go for a checkup? Or let Mom die. Mom begs you, Oliver. Get up. I'm not getting up. If you don't, I'll stay on my knees. Oliver, you can't stand to see Mom. Get up. I couldn't help but raise my voice. Avoiding her cloudy eyes, she deflated. I'm coming with you. 16. I came home in the evening. Still smelled the meal. And Connor's voice complaining. I said if you don't come back I'm going to rob people from your company. The moment he met his eyes, he suddenly stopped talking. What's wrong? Did you get angry at the company? Why do you look so bad? I tilted my head to avoid his outstretched hand. I run the company, who can give me a hard time? I went to the bathroom to wash my hands, but Connor was still talking after me. Who knows? What if there's a rare and unreasonable person who comes after you? After washing his hands, he turned around and flicked him in the face. Connor gritted his teeth. You're done, Oliver? I spoke up as he held me against the sink, trying to rub it in my face. Hungry for dinner. The bowl of rice was almost at the bottom when Connor suddenly spoke up. Oliver, are you hiding something from me? The hand that was holding the food paused for a moment, pulling out a smile. Why do you ask? You're not in the right mood today. Why are you studying my mood? Studying? I've been hitting on you since high school. Why would I need to study you? It's all in the gut. Connor's eyes were full of confidence, seriousness, and a little bit of ass. I couldn't help but let go of my chopsticks. Connor. Huh. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? He cleared his throat and smiled a gangly smile, a lot. Your pretty face, your hot body. I'm the only one who can coax your sensitive nature and your stubbornness. I want you to be tough and soft, and I want you to be faithful to me. Of course, and now there's one more thing, your willingness to bear me children. 17. 3 days later. A meeting is being held in the conference room. The assistant trotted over very urgently and whispered, Oliver, your mother has come to the company and said she must see you immediately. Before he could finish his sentence, a figure was reflected in the glass door of the conference room, immediately followed by the sound of heavy tapping. All eyes were on me. I took a deep breath and passed Caleb a look. Turning, I walked quickly outside. Luna's eyes burst into an unusually excited light as soon as she saw me. I rushed to speak before she could. Let's talk in my office. The moment she closed the door, she grabbed my arm with both hands. Her voice trembled. Oliver, it's a match. You and your brother, it's a match. Brother? I smiled coldly. Pulling my hand out, I looked at her, expressionless. So? She froze, like she couldn't believe I would be so cold. So your brother is saved, Oliver, only you can save him. Mom, I tried to maintain my composure. Aren't you forgetting something? She staggers her eyes for a moment, her voice taking on a sobbing tone. Oliver, you're still so young, the baby will come later. But your brother, he can't wait. I can't stand by and watch my child, he's only 20 years old. She looked like she was heartbroken, so painful that she couldn't even say complete words. I couldn't help but take a step back. My throat tightened, I swallowed several times and asked, Mom, I'm not also your child. She looked over at me, and blankness unexpectedly appeared in her tear-masked eyes. In the next instant, she grabbed my hand and knelt down. Oliver, Mom fought tooth and nail to give birth to you in the first place, and you're just as what? It was as if there were knives in the air, cutting raw with every breath. I pulled out a sad smile. Consider it a return of your life, right? She didn't say anything, but just cried. Tears stained the back of my hand. I took several deep breaths before speaking. You get up. She came back to grab my hand, hissing and crying. I won't get up. If you don't say yes, I'll stay on my knees, Oliver. Mom begs you. Mom begs you. The cries of pain echoed in my ears. I pulled out my hand, which had been scratched blue and white, trying to smooth out my voice. You get up. Promise you. The crying stopped abruptly. She was stunned for a few moments, and a joyful afterlife gradually appeared on her dry face. Murmuring, Really, Oliver, you really promise? Then we're going to the hospital now, okay? Let's. Now. I swallow my bitterness and laugh. I was just in a meeting, you have to let me get my work organized. After helping her up, walked to the window and dialed a number. Dialed the first time, no answer. Shaking hands, dialed a second time. The moment she heard his voice, the burning in her eyes could no longer be suppressed. Why are you calling me at this hour? You miss me? Just had a partner come to the company? Connor. Oliver, are you crying? What's going on? Are you at your office right now? Don't cry, sweetie. I took several deep breaths and finally said the words. Connor, I need you. Connor is on his way here. Stayed on the phone with me the whole time. What he asked, I answered. What he didn't ask, I told. He knew everything about my parents. Oliver, I want to punch you and hug you at the same time. Then hurry up. Don't rush me, Grandpa. I'm running under the speed limit. I'm not going to rush you, I'm hanging up. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. I don't want to worry if I can't hear you. I have nothing more to say. Listen to me. I haven't told you anything yet. Aren't you curious about the years I didn't come to you? I sat cross-legged on the floor and looked through the window at the cars coming and going downstairs. Go ahead then. After a long breath, I heard him say, When I was in college, I actually wanted to go after you. 9 out of 10 times that I went to see you, I saw you with an alpha, walking very close to him, talking and laughing. I thought, maybe I'm not your type at all, so it's useless for me to pursue you. I let out a helpless laugh. That's my partner, Caleb, and she has a 2-month-old baby. The caller paused for a few seconds. I'm useless. He continued. On the eve of my graduation, my grandmother found out that her cancer was terminal and she had to go abroad for treatment. I applied for graduate school abroad to accompany her. It took 3 years, but I didn't make it. Before she died, she clutched my hand and said that her only regret was that she didn't get to see what her grandson-in-law looked like. I showed her your photo and she was very satisfied with it, saying that we were a good match and that she would keep watch over you for me when she got to heaven, and told me to hold on tight. After I sent my grandmother back to China for burial, I went to see you once. Seeing that you had your own business and were full of vigor, with the same alpha by your side, I thought I was one step too late after all. It just so happened that the company abroad was short of staff, so I went out there for another 3 years. Oliver, for 10 years in total, I never stopped thinking about you very, very much. So when I saw you that night, I was trying to control it, but I really couldn't. Can we not talk about that night? I'm downstairs at your office. Count to 10. 10, 9, 8, 7. Slow down, my dear. I'm not counting anymore. I hung up the phone and walked towards the door. I unconsciously slowed down my pace. The moment I pulled the door open, Connor appeared in front of me. Gasping slightly, he reaches out and presses me into his arms, not letting go of me until his violently beating heart calmed, looking me over from head to toe. Not bad except for the swollen eyes. Where's Luna? I led him a few steps inside and reached out. Connor led me over and sat across from her. The tone was serious, like he was in a business negotiation. Hi Luna, I'm Oliver's alpha, the baby's father. You can talk to me about anything. 19. The scene is silent for a moment. I look to Luna. He's not lying to you and neither am I. What I promised you, he will do for me. In the future, I won't owe you anything. At this point, I have nothing more to say. The rest is in Connor's hands. As I walked out of the office, I was stopped by Caleb. What's going on, Oliver? You've invited the head of Xingmin Group here to expand our business? I thought about it and decided to come clean. I'm pregnant. Caleb's eyes widened. It's his. Holy shit. He chased me in high school and reconnected 2 months ago. I raised my hand to hold his chin for him. Let me borrow your office for a while. Just 2 steps away, he tugged on his arm. So then you leave him in your office, you come out, what's the matter? My mom is in there too. As I walked to Caleb's office, I told him the whole story about the mating. When I closed the door, he gave me a hug. When are you two going to get married? He said. This is a good change of subject. I took his hand and headed for the couch. There's no rush. TSK, the child has already been born, but still refused to give people Connor's name. Okay, you take a rest, I'm going to go and get busy. You'd better hurry. I've just been lying down for 10 minutes. The phone rang. Oliver, I heard you're pregnant? How old is the baby? When are you getting married? These two. 20. 1 month later. I'm on my lunch break at the office. Connor came to the office, telling me that I had found a bone marrow match. He also paid all the fees. Let's pay her back for giving birth to us, and then we'll give her a ride when she's 100 years old, and see who dares to say you're wrong. I laughed. That's pretty far out. That's Dash. Connor suddenly reached out and cupped my face. Oliver, am I reliable? I'm good. Do you want to get married? Let go of me for a second. Connor gave me 2 pecks on the lips before letting go. Tell me, or you're not getting out of this lounge today. I pretended I didn't hear his threats and found a comfortable semi-recumbent position again. Connor, let me ask you a question. Go ahead. Why have you lasted so long? Since high school, I can't count the number of times I've pushed him away. But he still came at me again and again. Have I ever told you anything? What? Connor said, suddenly serious. You seem to have a natural attraction to me. Because of the pheromones? Pheromones, my ass. Although we do fit together, I guess, but you weren't even differentiated when I first met you. So, you were the one I liked from the first time I met you, and just the thought of me being the one you could count on made me feel good inside. It's a pity that I realized very late that you didn't want to be a roller coaster, you wanted to be a tree that stood shoulder to shoulder with me. That's why my love was a burden to you, right? I looked into those deep black eyes. Inexplicably, my nose was a little sore. Connor moved a little closer. Oliver, I can feel the love you've given me, so much of it. I couldn't bear it anymore. I raised my hand and punched him in the chest. Connor, you did that on purpose? He just stared at me and laughed. When he was done laughing, he came up and kissed me. So much so that I could smell my own bamboo scent. Connor wrapped his arms around me again and lay down on the bed. The scent of green sandalwood also grew stronger. Any more questions? I grabbed the hair on the back of his head and yanked it back. Yes. The dream I had 2 days ago popped into my head. Connor. Quick question. Are you going bald? Will you grow a beer belly? Will you have a beer belly? Will you always love me so much? Love me so much? Connor narrowed his eyes. No. I nodded. Listen up, Oliver. Number 1, I haven't had a bald head in 4 generations, not even in the next. 2, I've always had abs. 8-pack. And thirdly, he raised his hand and cupped my left earlobe. I'll always love you very, very much, just you. Are you relieved? Aha. Then promise to marry me? Marry me. I can't hear you, speak up. Marry me. The alarm for my lunch break went off. I got up halfway. I was pressed back again. Don't move. If you do, the baby will think we're up to no good. I think your bed is still a little small. Some other time you will take you to the lounge of my president's office. My bed can be very big, feel free to roll. I saw the hem of my shirt being pulled out. I gave him a lazy shove and laughed. Have some face, Connor. No, I don't want any face. He clasped my hands at my sides, smug. I can't even chase you with a face. That's true. I opened my lips to his kiss. Smiling vaguely. You can have it later.